Although Bitcoin has reached new all-time highs in the weeks just past, the total crypto market cap has yet to reach a new all-time high. We did see, of course, a low of $727 billion in 2022, and our previous all-time high for total market cap was in November of 2021 at just over $3 trillion. At the point of recording today's video, we are hovering around $2.556 trillion, meaning that we're approximately 17% away from a total market cap all-time high. So what does this mean for Bitcoin? What does this mean for the altcoins? And in today's video, we're going to be kind of diving into some of this data and sharing my thoughts and opinions on where I think things could be going. We'll be taking a look at the Bitcoin chart on the daily time frame, reflecting on where BTC is. We'll be taking a look at the total market cap, the chart that you see in front of you here, and total 2, basically stripping out Bitcoin, total 3, stripping out Bitcoin and Ethereum, and taking a look at the altcoin market in isolation to BTC. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video update. My name is Nick and I appreciate you all hanging out with me here on this Saturday morning where we're going to be jumping into the charts, just taking a look at what's going on with Bitcoin's price action, what's going on with those total market cap levels and whether or not we have the potential for an altcoin season. And I did kind of talk about this a little while ago, just reflecting on whether or not an altcoin season is something that we actually will see or if it is something that is a bit mythical. So do go ahead and check out that video if you happened to miss it. But let's take a look at Bitcoin here. So BTC here is quite interesting. So we have had a bit of a run to the upside, and this move to the upside has been fueled through a couple of different things. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to kind of understand whether or not this still has further potential to the upside before a major correction, or whether or not a correction is coming, right? Ultimately, we don't really, if we're being brutally honest, care whether the price goes up or goes down, as long as we can profit from the direction in which the price action is heading. Okay, so a lot of people are just always bullish on the market and they always want the market to go to the upside, in which case they actually lose out on these opportunities during these bearish markets because they still make very good money on the way to the downside. Likewise, you can make very good money on the way to the upside. And again, you know, there's lots of different ways to approach this. Leverage-based trading is obviously the one that you go to for shorting the market. And if I am to be leverage-based trading, I am going to be trading on BitGet, as BitGet is my go-to platform for leverage-based trades. Now, Bitcoin's price action has been very aggressive since we got into the lows of November 2022. So far, we have rallied up 375% into a new all-time high. Now, 375% really isn't that much in the crypto space. And this is because we see diminishing gains over time when it comes to BTC. BTC, unfortunately, is really now more of a stock market play, with the Bitcoin spot ETFs being essentially shares in the BTC that is held. So although the ETF itself has to hold Bitcoin, the investors in the ETF don't actually have to get involved in crypto at all. And it's actually makes Bitcoin more of a stock now than anything else. And with the amount of money flowing into the Bitcoin spot ETFs, you can argue that basically Bitcoin is just a stock market asset now rather than a cryptocurrency asset. Although the actual underlying asset that is held by the Bitcoin spot ETF is, of course, crypto. Unfortunately, the majority of Bitcoin is probably going to end up being held by the ETFs, and as such, you can argue centralization through decentralizing the ownership of Bitcoin through these stocks instead, so the shares in the Bitcoin ETFs. Now, this 375% move has been fueled by the ETF, right? Lots of kind of speculation around the ETFs when it was going to launch, lots of people trying to buy in beforehand, and of course, lots of a run to the upside once all that stock market money started to come on in. One of the obvious things about this move to the upside for Bitcoin, okay, was that the money that's flowed into the Bitcoin spot ETFs is stock market money, right? It's very obvious about this because no one is going to, in their right mind anyway, wait for an ETF to launch if they were in the crypto space. They were buying early. They were buying here, 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 and so forth, right? And anyone who was buying the Bitcoin spot ETFs and not buying Bitcoin directly, they were never going to have any interest in buying a Bitcoin directly and being responsible for holding it and all that kind of stuff. This means that the money that's gone into the Bitcoin spot ETFs, in my mind, is never going to roll out of Bitcoin into the altcoins. And this is a very important thing that we have to kind of reflect on, because we all talk about, wanting altcoin seasons and how money rolls out of Bitcoin into altcoins. That, I think, is still going to happen only from the legacy side, the people who were buying Bitcoin in the early stages of 2023, as we kind of get into the later stages of 2024, potentially down here. But as soon as we entered into 2024, all of this move up this end, this money is never going to roll out of the Bitcoin spot ETFs, go over to Coinbase, set up an account and start buying altcoin assets. That's just simply not going to happen. This money is in the stock market, and that's where it will tend to stay, rolling out of stocks and back into stocks. I do not see the Bitcoin spot ETF being an overall positive for the altcoin market. Okay, so we want to be aware of that. Now, of course, there could potentially be altcoin ETFs in the future, right? There's lots of speculation around when the Ethereum spot ETFs go live. What will happen after that? Are we going to see, I don't know, a Cardano ETF? Are we going to see a Solana ETF? What about a Dogecoin ETF, right? These are things that could potentially be on the horizon in the coming years. And so the money that goes into crypto assets like Ethereum, like Cardano, like Dogecoin, like some of these other well-known altcoins, XRP and so forth, those assets, buying them through crypto and in the anticipation of, an ETF in the future might be very lucrative, at least for a medium term. But in the case of Bitcoin here, I do not see the money rolling out of Bitcoin into the altcoins, and therefore we do pose a bit of a problem when it comes to this idea that an altcoin season is coming. We need more crypto adoption, not ETF adoption, okay? And if we want to see good growth in crypto, which we will see in my opinion, but it's going to happen slightly differently rather than through ETFs. ETFs are going to be great for the people who are already here, but it's not going to help bring in adoption, in my opinion. Not unless, of course, people are really that interested and are, curious about crypto, and they've already been in the ETF, that they might want to dip a toe into the world of cryptocurrency. But considering the amount of scammers and scamming activity that is out here in the crypto space, I imagine a lot of people are feeling more safer when it comes to ETFs than they would just trying to get involved in cryptocurrency exchanges. FTX is a clear example of that. So with our total market cap increasing to $2.556 trillion from our $727 billion, we know the majority of this is actually driven from the ETF, right? It's kind of like a make-believe number. It's not real adoption just yet. I do think that adoption, of course, will be coming. Now, we can obviously strip out Bitcoin from the equation, and you can see that the gap becomes a little bit vaster, right? So if we take Bitcoin out, we can actually see that our previous all-time high for all cryptocurrencies, excluding Bitcoin, was 1.7 trillion back in 2021. We had a low in 2022 of 427 billion, and we're currently sat at $1.186 trillion. Essentially, guys, that means that we're 43.35% away from an all-time high. So when you exclude Bitcoin from the equation, you can see that we're not really getting any decent progress in that move to the upside. And actually, we've got quite the journey still to go. You can see that at the moment, we're kind of fighting just around and between the 702 fib and the 0.786 fib on the total 2-month level. Okay, so knowing that Bitcoin has run quite a bit, and knowing that the money really has just been coming in from the stock market, total market cap can be a little bit misleading, showing us that only we're 17% away from total crypto all-time highs. But if we take Bitcoin out of the equation, we can actually see it's 43.35%. Now, the other part of this equation, the other thing that we have to focus in on, specifically when it comes to trying to understand understand the performance of altcoins and whether or not we still have significant potential for them, is to understand what the impact of the Ethereum spot ETF has on the crypto market. And to do that, we can come on over into Total3. Now, Total3 strips out Bitcoin, it strips out Ethereum from the equation, and it shows us just all the other altcoins. Okay, with a total market cap high of 1.13 trillion back in 2021, we did see this dip down to $287 billion in 2022. After this, we did rally up quite nicely for the total market cap, currently hovering at $760 billion. So with the total market cap hovering at $760 billion and our previous high at 1.131 trillion, well, we are, of course, about 49.23% away from a new altcoin all-time high market. Okay, so essentially what we're talking about here is that Bitcoin's performance to the upside through the Bitcoin spot ETFs, although great, hasn't really reflected on an overall positive outlook for the total crypto market. The money that's gone into Bitcoin is very unlikely to roll out of Bitcoin and go into the coins. Now, this is obvious when we take a look at, of course, the total market cap level only being 17% away from all-time high. Strip Bitcoin out, it's 43%. And if you take Ethereum out of the equation, it's 49%. This gives us a bit of an idea that the altcoin market still has so much more potential to it. But what about an altcoin season? Well, because altcoin seasons typically, I say typically as in they always happen, typically the idea behind an altcoin season would be that money rolls out of Bitcoin and goes into Ethereum, rolls out of Ethereum, goes into altcoins. However, a true altcoin season has only ever happened once before. It hasn't actually been something that is consistent. It's not something that happens time and time again. There's actually only one true altcoin season that we can actually see in the market, where money rolls out of Bitcoin after Bitcoin reaches an all-time high, and we see altcoins start to run into new all-time highs afterwards. In 2021, there were a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, what we saw was Bitcoin reach an all-time high, and then the entire crypto market collapse. There wasn't a run on altcoins after the 2021 highs. And again, back in 2013, when we saw Bitcoin reaching all-time highs, there weren't that many altcoins for money to roll in out of Bitcoin into the altcoins. In fact, it was very difficult to actually transact with Bitcoin back then, because exchanges as we know them today just simply didn't exist. There was a lot more peer-to-peer related transactions. And of course, in 2017 was the only real time that we saw Bitcoin reach an all-time high and money start rolling out of Bitcoin into the altcoins. Again, it was because it was a little bit easier to transact in this way. There were more altcoins in circulating supply or out there in circulation, and it was easier to kind of transact upon them. Where we stand now and in the future here is we actually see a lot of people not necessarily holding Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's kind of being left more towards the OGs of the crypto space and wealthy individuals that want a slightly less risky crypto experience. For most newcomers, they kind of avoid Bitcoin. It's expensive, you don't get much of it, and the gains are really lacking. And this is something that we kind of talk about quite a bit on the channel. You know, over time, we have seen basically a reduction of returns on your investment. Okay, this is what we call diminishing gains over time. This isn't anything terribly unusual. It's something that we see just because of the nature of any real world asset, or any asset just generally. Over time, the return on investment does diminish. You get the initial boom, and then it becomes more stable over time. The more liquid an asset becomes, the more stable it becomes. The more illiquid an asset, the more volatile the asset becomes. So for most newcomers in the space who take a look at Bitcoin, who have an understanding of supply-demand metrics and liquidity, they tend to avoid buying BTC and actually look for other assets that actually have a reason for explosive moves. And that's really where the altcoin market really kind of kicks in. So I do see that we need to see adoption. We need to see more adoption of the altcoin market before we actually see these really good, use the term altcoin seasons start to emerge. Now, Dogecoin is obviously a speculative asset, a meme coin that has a lot of people's attention simply because of, Twitter, X, Elon Musk, and the idea that maybe there's going to be some kind of utility built into Dogecoin in the future. Ultimately, though, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a big catalyst for an altcoin market. But again, in the altcoin space, I could potentially see money rolling out of meme coins into more stable projects like Solana, XRP, Cardano, Matic, layer 2s, I think will perform well. And so maybe we'll see, instead of money rolling out of Bitcoin, rolling out of meme coins such as, let's say, Shiba, Pepe, and Doge, and actually going into more legitimate based projects. But let me know what your thoughts are on all of this in the comments down below. Do you align to my thinking that basically Bitcoin is kind of a done crypto asset that is basically now just a stock market play without money rolling out of Bitcoin into the altcoins? Or do you think that actually Bitcoin is going to perform incredibly well? It's going to outperform its previous cycle highs, and money will roll out of Bitcoin into the altcoins? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And why don't you check out the video on the screen here to stay up to date with the crypto space?